Okay, this is the marker float we're going to make. It doesn't look much, but this is a battle scarred one, made from a ping pong ball, cork, got some reflective tape for use at night, but that's been a bit painted over, but that's what we're aiming to make today. So check through the materials we need. We need ping pong ball, wooden barbecue stick, some cotton and a piece of wire, handy to have a sharp knife, scissors, some reflective tape if you're working at night, and some no-nails glue. Oh, and we need a wine cork. Unfortunately I haven't got one ready, so we're going to have to pull one out of this bottle here. So just bear with me while I deal with this a second. This is the hardest part of the job, I think, getting the cork. Voila! So there's it. Cheers. Well, that's better. We'll just have another one, I think. Oh, right. Ready? One more. Right. Now we're ready to start. Let's start. Yeah. We're cork. That's what we came in for. Okay, well we start by bending the wire into a nice shape to form an eye. We're going to whip it onto the end of our bamboo skewer. It just helps to flatten off the ends. And we're going to whip that on like that with just a piece of black thread. So we keep a bit finishing off the whipping. There we go. It doesn't have to be very pretty because you're not going to see it at the end of the day. There we have it, very crudely on. Just like to seal it off with a bit of no-nails. As I say, you're not going to see it, so it doesn't have to be very pretty, and it isn't. Okay, we have the eye on the end of a bamboo skewer. We just push it through the ping pong ball and push it right into the ping pong ball like that. We've got an eye on the end. Now we're going to put the skewer through the cork, but where the cork fits onto ping pong ball, it helps just to carve out a little piece of cork, a little hollow, so it makes a better join. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty because you're not going to see it, and nothing I do is pretty. So there we have it. Bit of hollowing into the cork. Shove the skewer through the ping pong ball. Now, a bit more no-nails, a bit more glue. Smear that all around there. Push it onto the ping pong ball. Push the two together and then just make a smooth join. And there we go, that's the finished article. The only thing that remains to do is cut the wood, but don't cut it yet because we need to paint it. So let's do the painting. Okay, when everything's dry, simply get a can of black spray paint. You see why I've left it on the stick? Makes it easier to paint. Don't know about blobs of paint and stuff like that unless you're oh dear, oh dear. And then just leave it to dry. Okay, well, while I'm waiting for that one to dry, I'll come back to this one that's been knocked about a bit, back for repainting. Paint it black and get some reflective tape just to finish it off. You only need to do this if you're going to use it at night, but it's very, very effective. And just put a strip of reflective tape around the top. And that's the finished marker float. As I say, it doesn't look much, but I'll show you how I set it up and use it. So we have the float, we've got a nice heavy weight that's going to sit on the bottom, and we've got the counterbalance weight. This weight is going to be sufficiently heavy to just cock the float when it hangs in the water. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And we need some line, and a piece of line very fine so that you can break it easily if needs be, if you get snagged up. And the length of this piece of line needs to be at least the depth of water you're fishing in plus a metre or so. So we tie the weight on one end, and then thread the float so it just hangs loose there, and tie the heavy weight at the other end. It's best done without consuming wine beforehand. Okay, so we have the heavy weight running through until we come to the small weight at the end. And all you do to prepare it for casting is to pull the small weight up to the eye and wrap it around the cork stem. Okay, and there's your marker float all made up, ready to be cast out, and you cast it out in a spom or something similar. Okay, so there's the marker float and weights all made up on a line ready to be cast out. I've only made it 1.5 meters because I'm going to test this in a swimming pool or demonstrate it in the swimming pool. But normally I fish in about 10 metres of water, so I'd have about 12 metres of line on there. But just for demonstration purposes, I've got a short length. That's ready to go in a spom, something like this. Ignore the weight on the end, the float on the end. I just use that for retrieving it when I get cracked off, which is more often than I wish. And that's it, ready to cast. You just cast the whole thing out up against a line clip, and it sets itself on the bottom, which I'll show you by demonstrating it in the swimming pool. So the weight hanging down from the float method like this works in almost all situations, but there is a problem. There's always the chance of the weight tangling around the line like this. It usually very slowly untangles, and you have to wait until there's no friction and the thing can start operating properly. But if you've got a clean bottom, if you know you're sitting over weed or silt, there is a slightly better way, and that's with a cork up from the bottom. So your float is on the surface like this, and you use a floating cork to take up the slack, to adjust the float to the right depth. And the beauty of this is the rim on the cork pushes away from the line and stops it tangling, and it operates much quicker, and it's just better for me. And to operate this way, you've got the lines sliding on the float. Set it up, you just wind it around the thing, and all that lot just sits into your spom. It's a little bit bulkier, but it still works, but only if you've not got any weed on the bottom or silt to stop this floating up action. Now you can use the same float idea to make a very good adjustable zig setup, zig float. This is the deluxe version of the marker float because it's got a champagne cork. Much more expensive, these items. Right, so we start the setup by taking your weight and leaving it free running on the line. The weight needs to come up against a shop bead. Then we put on the float, free running, another shop bead, and then to hold everything in place we need a float stop. So put a float stop on. That's float stop. And your zig. For demonstration purposes I've just stuck a cork through a hook, but a hook through a cork I should say. We'll just tie that on roughly. Just for demo purposes, you understand. I'll take much more care if I was going to try and catch a carp. That'll do. Okay, so there we have it. You can see that. So we've got the weight, float stop, shop bead, float, shop bead, float stop. Now we need to set the distance between the float and the hook to a set length. Personally, I prefer something like 3 meters if I'm fishing in very deep water, and that's the reason for using a sliding float stop, because when you wind in and you've got 3 meters between your float and your hook and you've got a big fish on, it's very awkward to manage. So you want to wind it in against the top eye of your rod so that as it comes in through the top eye, the float slides down towards the hook without any trouble until you've got a handleable length of line to the fish. So that's the reason it has to slide. So we set this to, let's say, 3 meters. Well, I'm not going to do it here because that's take too long. Then we need everything up tight and start winding. Now before we wind the line around the cork, we need a piece of PVA tape. I haven't got any PVA tape, but I've got a PVA bag, so that will do for me for the time being. So this is just PVA tape. And it doesn't matter what it looks like, it's only got a... I'm going to wind that around the cork clockwise, just roughly, very roughly. Doesn't matter what it looks like because it's going to be held in place by the line. So now we wind the line around the PVA tape like that till we get down to the hook, and then you just hook the hook of the zig into the PVA tape so that it's holding it. So you can see that. So now you can really put some pressure on that and cast without any possibility of it untangling, tangling rather. And you can really pull on there quite hard. You can put a lot of force behind that and get it out a long way. It's not going to come apart. It hits the water, the tape melts, the hook comes away. Oh, that's my knot. Floats up, and then the float comes up against the stop, and then you let the float rise up to the surface of the water. Then you pull in 3 meters of line, or however length the separation is between the float and the hook. Pull it down, and then you know your zig is on the surface. Then if you want to fish at 1 meter, you just pull a meter of line in, pull the float down towards the weight, and you're fishing a meter below the surface. So you can control it exactly just by pulling your line, winding your line in, or letting some out. As long as you know that distance between the float stop and the hook. And that's all there is to it. It works very, very well.